Welcome to this year's 2025 Economic Forecasts and Town Hall from Colorado Companies to Watch. We're so happy to have everyone on today and excited to talk about what the year looks like ahead from an economic standpoint, and then do a quick recap of what we're doing at Colorado Companies to Watch. Most of you know me. I am John Michael Horst. I am the program manager of Colorado Companies to Watch and a board director and the alumni chair. So I think almost everyone knows who I am. We're excited today. Well, to start, we want to thank all of our partners for Colorado Companies to Watch. Without their support and their involvement, what we're doing with this program would not be possible. So we want to recognize our partners today and give thanks. So today's agenda, we're going to do 30 minutes of a economic forecast presentation, do Q&A, and then we're going to do a quick town hall presentation from our committee chairs for Colorado Companies to Watch. And then we'll talk about upcoming events and nomination period. So today we're lucky to have Brian Lewandowski from the Leeds School of Business at the University of Colorado in Boulder. He's
Go Buffs.
He's going to do a wonderful presentation on the next this year's economic forecast and tell us how it's going to impact the state of Colorado. So, Brian, take it away.
All right, thanks, John Michael, and Matt. Thanks for the shout out to the Buffs. Certainly an improvement this year over last year. I think this might be, I don't know, the seventh year or so that I've done this economic update for your group, and it's always something I enjoy doing with you. I hope you sort of keep track of some questions as we're going through this, so we can have a robust Q&A at the very end. So I retitled this instead of a resilient economy. I had to use a thesaurus and come up with something different because I've been talking about a resilient economy now for 5 years or so. And I think we have continued to be surprised on the upside. There's been expectations of slower economic growth, slower employment growth, and so on. But still the numbers keep coming in a little bit better. So instead of a resilient economy, we're calling it a tenacious economy, but really we're saying that things keep chugging along and keep doing a little bit better than what we initially expected. So per usual, I'm going to start with sort of this U.S. macroeconomic view of the world and then zoom into Colorado and some of our local areas within Colorado. Just a big picture of where we have been and where we're going. We like to take a look at U.S. real GDP, the measure of all the goods and services produced in this country. And note that it says real GDP. All that means is that it's adjusted for inflation. So we've gone through this high inflationary environment. This is even after we subtract for that inflation. So we're really producing more goods and services in this country. And this is one of those metrics that's been surprising on the upside. So third quarter came in stronger than expected and then was revised up, right? So I think the first estimate was 2.9% or so, and it went up to 3.1%. The estimate for the full year now is about 2.8%. We're going to get that first full year glimpse in about a week. The expectations for the fourth quarter, though, are 3%. So this is by pretty much every account, this has been a really strong year for economic growth. And just to reflect back the last couple of years, right? I think 2022 was that year that people were sort of expecting a recession to maybe start, and we ended up having 2.5% growth. There was some chatter about that for 2023, and we ended up having 2.9% growth. So instead of a recession, instead of a deceleration, we had an acceleration in growth, and that really was maintained this year. when we take a look at a basket of economic metrics to see if there are any warning signs, I really color code these red, yellow, and green, and you can sort of quickly scan this and notice that there isn't any red up on the screen right now. So some of these important metrics when we're looking for a recession, right? GDP growth, employment growth, income growth, consumption, um, labor force, all of these are expanding. They're all growing. There's a couple that are sort of doing okay. If you think about ISM manufacturing or inflation, inflation's getting better. It's not great, but it's getting better. So we sort of color code these yellow because they're not flashing red. They're not terrible, but they're also not showing sort of great performance over the last year. But we can sort of quickly scan this and have some confidence that there aren't any sort of major warning signs of the economy going off a cliff right now. That's not to say there's not uncertainty, and we can talk about that in a few moments when there's sort of some worries about tariffs, for instance, and what that could mean for our supply chain and what that could mean for prices. And so I sort of bucket that uncertainty in a different category. There are things that could be disruptive. It's just not showing up in the data yet. So I like to benchmark the national economy against itself over time. That's what we were just doing. I also like to benchmark Colorado against itself over time and against the other 49 states. It's a good way of keeping track of where we are. And when we take a look at Colorado over the last 15 years, so just emerging from the Great Recession, that financial crisis, housing crisis that we had in 2008, 2009, Colorado's economy has really been on a tear. Scan this list, and we were pretty much a top five economy for the major economic metrics that we watch. So that's super impressive. You know, fifth for GDP growth, fifth for employment growth, first for housing price growth, good or bad. It's where we were for the last 15 years. And so when we fast forward and take a look at where we are today, looking at 1 year growth, you can see that the ranking may not be quite as rosy, right? Few of these are top five. But even when we take a look at our position compared to other states across the US, uh, focus on the rate of growth because uh, a lower ranking may not equate to slow growth. Or slower growth from where we were a year ago may also not equate to slow growth. So I think you need to sort of zoom out and have a little bit of perspective that even if we are 33rd for personal income growth, 4.8% is by no means slow personal income growth. And in fact, it's beating inflation by a pretty good margin. And there are some of these that we continue to celebrate, like our labor force participation rate being fourth highest in the country, job openings rate being first in the country. Um, Even when we take a look at our employment growth year over year for November, the newest data we have, we're still ranking 12th. So I would say Colorado's economy continues to show really solid performance. I think this is also indicating that while we were on a tear for the last 15 years, now we're starting to see other states play catch up a little bit, and that's why they're showing some faster growth. So I'm going to try and leave you with five points to walk away from. Okay. Point number one is that labor market pressures are easing. I always emphasize that I'm not claiming that labor market pressures are easy, but they're easing. They're getting a little bit better. And so when we take a look at national employment growth, you can see the drop of jobs from the pandemic, and you can see the rebound in jobs. But also notice here that this curve is sort of flattening a little bit. It's hard to sustain this pace of growth, but still 1.4% year over year growth, 2.2 million additional jobs year over year is and continues to be really remarkable. To illustrate this slowdown a little bit better, though, I'd like to show the average job growth by year starting in 2021. And so this 2021 growth of 600,000 jobs per month really is illustrating the rebound from the pandemic recession. The 2022 growth of about 380,000 jobs added per month is showing the recovery, that point where we actually got back to peak employment levels. 2023 slowed further, 2024 slowed further, but 190,000 jobs per month in 2024, when we're at full employment, shows that there continues to be demand for workers and job opportunities in this country. Our labor force nationally has been operating at record high levels the last 5 months. Nationally, we're the 5 highest months for labor force in this country. We've never had more people working or raising their hands looking for a job than we've had over the last half a year. And when we take a look at the demand for workers, taking a look at job openings in this country, we have seen it coming down. So this red line shows that really in 2021 or so, we had the highest level of job openings ever, a huge imbalance between the number of job openings and the number of unemployed people looking for work. And these two lines are converging, hence this idea of an easing labor market, but there's still an imbalance. We still have more job openings than available workers in this country. And that's sort of setting aside this idea of matching workers by location, skill, education, desired wages, and so on. So it's easing, but if you're an employer, you're still feeling that this is a tight labor market. Same story in Colorado. Last 5 months, highest 5 months ever for Colorado's labor force. And remember that we have the fourth highest labor force participation rate in the country. So that's a percent of population 16 and over that are in the labor force. And our job openings rate is the highest in the country right now. So to me, that's a signal that we don't have a greatly deteriorating labor market in Colorado or business environment in Colorado. There's still a lot of demand for Colorado workers by Colorado businesses. One major concern for me is Colorado's population growth, and these numbers just got revised up in late December by the Census Bureau, and the Colorado Demography Office has reflected these changes now in their data for the statewide. What we see here in the sort of dark gray, dark blue bars is the natural increase. So this is the net of births minus deaths, and we're a state that's having more babies and people dying. So this is a positive number here. But what you can also see is a downward drift in the natural increase. And this reflects people delaying the decision to have kids, waiting to have children. Maybe they're having fewer children. And so this pipeline of youth has gotten smaller. The natural increase piece is a really important piece because this is really Colorado importing skilled available workers today. And they bring with them their families, their spouses, and so on. But this really hit a low point in 2021. You have to take a look back over a decade to see another low point like that. And it's rebounded. So we have about 38,000 or so added through net migration in 2023 and estimated for 2024. But we also understand that there's about 40,000 people retiring each year in Colorado right now, sort of that peak retirement era that we're in. So think about that for a second. If you have 40,000 people flowing out of the labor market because they're retiring, you need a pipeline of 40,000 people just to maintain the employment level in Colorado at zero. So that would be zero employment growth. And so if we want to add another 40,000 jobs or 50,000 jobs like we did last year, that's an additional supply you're going to need. And we know that we're not sort of producing enough of those people in Colorado, so we need this migration pipeline in order to maintain the kind of job growth that we've had over the past several years. And just another note on this, when we take a look at Colorado's labor force participation rate, right now it's at about 67%. We peaked in 1998 or so for Colorado's labor force participation rate. We were at 74%. Um, this was sort of the tail end of that benefit of women entering the job market in mass, starting in 1950 or so. So that ramped up, and then we saw just that wave of baby boomers starting retirement in the 2000s. So that labor force participation rate has been decreasing. And if we take a look at Colorado's population growth over that 25-year period or more, Colorado's population grew by about 44%. Our our prime working age population from about 25 to 64 years old grew by 40%. And that 65 and plus has grown by 144%. So I think that really illustrates the issue that we're in now with the wave of retirees and having sort of a smaller bubble of working age population coming up behind it, and that's truly one of our headwinds in the state. Colorado's employment forecast, then you can see on the left side here the growth that we've had in jobs in Colorado, really surprised on the upside in 2021 and 2022. But you can see this downward trajectory for jobs added in the state. So we think our estimated growth for 2024 came in at about 47,000. This is about what we expected even a year ago when we were forecasting out Colorado's job growth. But 2025, we think, is going to slow down further to about 37,000. And we think that this is really a labor supply headwind more than anything else, just not enough workers to fill that demand. What have we observed over the last year when we take a look at the metropolitan statistical areas around Colorado? So this is showing year over year growth as of November, the newest data that's available. On the left side, you can see jobs added, Denver MSA, clearly the center of commerce in Colorado, the largest metropolitan area in Colorado, also added the most jobs in the state year over year. But what I would point out here on the right side is a percentage growth, and you can see that every metro area added jobs year over year, and it doesn't vary as much as we may have seen in the past. So Pueblo, we're seeing about 0.5% growth, and Colorado Springs, we're seeing a little under 1% growth. So it's pretty broad growth around the state, which I think is a pretty healthy sign. The industries where we expect the most jobs added for 2025 really is in healthcare, continued growth in healthcare. Government, we're expecting some additional job growth, but not so much in state government. I think we're still seeing growth in local government playing catch up from the pandemic recession. So think of cities, counties, K-12 growth. And then the construction industry, we think, is going to start rebounding from their own sort of economic cycle that they've gone through. So point number two is that inflation is normalizing. We've all lived this high inflation now for the last several years. I think what's remarkable when we take a look at national inflation from that point when prices started to grow at a faster rate and they crossed that 2% threshold. Again, 2% is an important mark because that's the Fed's target inflation rate to oscillate, closely around 2%. It took about 16 months before the nation hit peak at 9%. And that was the highest inflation that we've seen in 4 decades in this country. It took 12 months for inflation to drop back down and touch 3%. So it was a faster fall than it was a rise. And it oscillated there for about 12 months before dipping below 3%. So here we've seen some market improvement. It's not back down to that 2% target range that the Fed is looking for, but it's sub 3%, which I think is positive. I think there's some question marks around this when it comes to things like proposed tariffs, and we saw a 10% tariff imposed on China that should take effect in early February, and that can have some supply side inflationary pressures. So I think this is something that we'll continue to be closely watching over the next year. Producer prices, which are a little bit upstream, we saw a faster rise. We saw prices hover at higher levels for a longer period of time. But interestingly, on producer prices, we've seen them come back down and actually go negative for a while, and they're really operating close to zero year over year. We can take a look at this for the Denver metro area and compare it to the mountain region and to the US. And the December data that we have for the US and the mountain region, we can see that prices were up 2.9% and 1.7%. We only have November. Denver Metro comes out every other month from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and prices rose 2%. So for the last several months, we've been comparing Denver to the nation, and we're seeing that Denver has been growing at a slower rate than the nation when it comes to price inflation. And this really has to do with slower price growth on the housing front. So home price appreciation and rent growth, which is the largest piece of the pie when it comes to our spending. And I'll talk about that more in just a moment. But when we do take a look at the long view, over the last 15 years, Denver has run hotter than the nation when it comes to price growth. So to be able to talk about slower price growth in 2024, I think is really a remarkable thing where we're actually seeing softening prices locally compared to the nation. Gasoline prices were down year over year, 11 out of the 12 months of 2024. December was the only month where they were higher year over year, and that was true for Colorado and for the country. Okay, so point number 3 is that interest rates are decreasing. I had to put in parentheses some because it's not across the board where we're seeing interest rates come down. The Fed has their federal funds rate, so they're really controlling short-term interest rates. They've been watching, there's this dual mandate, operating at full employment and having inflation oscillating around 2%. We continue to be operating at full employment. I demonstrated that a moment ago, and I also demonstrated that inflation has been coming down. So that sort of spurred the Fed, gave them some ammunition to be able to cut interest rates in September, and they've cut about 100 basis points so far, or 1% from the federal funds rate, which has brought down the short end of the yield curve or short-term interest rates. We see that in the 3-month T-bill. But I think what's been interesting here is we've seen an increase in the 10-year Treasury note and even the 30-year mortgage rate. And I bring this up because as consumers, like all of us are, why does the short-term rate really matter to us? I mean, it might matter for some auto loans or for your credit card rate, but if you're thinking about a mortgage and trying to buy your first home, or you're trying to upgrade into your second home, the mortgage rates have been increasing again, and they're actually over 7% today. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between the cut in the short-term rate and what we're seeing in the long rates right now. So point number 4 is that consumption is moderating. We've continued to see growth in personal income. Personal income now is operating at record high levels. We're seeing consumption continue to rise at record high levels, and we're seeing the savings rate even increase a little bit year over year over the last several months. So I think all of these are signs that the consumer has sort of come out of an era that we were worried about, because there's a period of time where there was negative real wage growth, high inflation, high interest rates, a depletion of savings, consumers allocating less to their savings accounts. And so all of this sort of spelled a little bit of trouble for consumption and for retail activity. But now it feels like we're actually on the other side of that, where the consumer is demonstrating much more strength than what we expected at this time. And on that personal income front, this just shows the 4 major sort of pieces of personal income. Employee compensation, record high levels. The proprietor income, so think about those people who are owning and operating their businesses, record high levels. Dividends, interest, and rent, hovering at record high levels. And then these transfer payments from the government to households, we've seen come off peak levels. You can see stimulus payments that went out early during the pandemic, and then they sort of went away. And even though there's a little bit of upward growth, think of things like Social Security and whatnot, we've seen it stabilize after those transfer payments ended. Credit card delinquencies and other debt. The only one that is really showing a rise in delinquencies is credit cards. We've seen a little bit of a drift upward in this group of other, but auto loans and student loans and other forms of debt, we're not seeing sharp spikes in delinquencies. So I think looking at the debt front too, consumers are continuing to show that they're on an okay footing right now. And another way of looking at this is retail sales year-over-year growth of 3.7%. So consumers are continuing to consume. They're continuing to buy. They're shifting that a little bit in the types of goods and services that they're buying. So we're seeing much more growth in services right now than we are in goods. But this is one of those metrics. It's a barometer that we look at for consumption. Relating this to Colorado, um, in general, we've seen a slowing of taxable sales and sales tax collections in the state. I think it's illustrated by the gold line that's on the bar here. The black lines are just showing you monthly sales tax collections, and the pattern that you're seeing here is seasonality. There's peaks and troughs throughout the year in retail activity, depending on holidays and vacations and everything else. So that's a predictable recurring pattern, but on a 12-month basis, you can see the flattening happening up on the screen. Colorado was beating the nation in retail activity for a few years. We're seeing this slowing. I don't think that this is illustrating much of a difference in the consumer in Colorado, but rather in the consumption in Colorado. So the things that are taxable here are goods, and we're seeing less of the goods sales, and there's evidence that shows more of the growth in services sales in the state. So our consumers are spending more on the non-taxable stuff locally. We can compare counties around Colorado. This is the state's tax collections from all of our local jurisdictions. And so it's the same tax base. It's an apples to apples comparison. And there's two things I'll point out here. One is that overall, the state is up just 0.8% year over year, so really slow growth. But look at the variation in taxable sales by county as of October year to date, right? So you've got places like Kiowa, Baca, Morgan County that are showing over 20% growth. On the other extreme, Cheyenne County showing over 20% decline, and there's a lot of flatness in the middle. I summarize this by metro area, and so this is grouping counties together that comprise a metropolitan statistical area, and places like Colorado Springs and Fort Collins are showing stronger growth, while places like Boulder and Greeley are showing a little bit weaker growth year to date through October. Okay, so my last point, my final point here before wrapping us up is that construction and real estate are emerging. This is sort of a perhaps gentle and optimistic way of looking at it because construction and real estate have gone through their own sort of economic cycle. If we think about rolling recessions, I think manufacturing, tech, construction, real estate all sort of fall into those categories of going through their own business cycles, and now they're starting to come out of those. So reflecting back on that ranking slide that I had very early on, showing that Colorado was a top 5 state by nearly every metric, this illustrates that for home price appreciation. So over the 15-year period from 2008 to 2023, Colorado ranked first in the compound annual growth rate, growing on average about 6% a year for a 15-year period. That it's not sustainable growth. We now see affordability issues in Colorado. But what we're seeing now when we take a look year over year at just for a single year in the third quarter, you can see how we moved from really the front of the line to the back of the line. This growth now of 2.5% or so is still not slow growth. It's slower growth, but even that is still beating the rate of inflation that we have in Colorado. I look at this favorably. I think this shows that we're not affordable. We're not getting more affordable, but we're not getting unaffordable at such a fast pace, if that makes any sense. We can take a look at this by metro area. There's a wide variation. There's about 400 metro areas around the country, and look at where your metro areas fall, right? So Greeley and Pueblo, sort of in the upper quartile for growth. Grand Junction, Colorado Springs, Boulder, sort of in the middle, and then Denver and Fort Collins are lagging a little bit when it comes to home price appreciation year over year. Building permits nationally, we continue to see some growth now in single family. So that's the black bars. We have year-to-date growth for November. We see some acceleration in growth in single family permits. We've seen multifamily permits pull back by quite a bit. When we look at Colorado, it's a very same story. It's a little bit more accentuated here. And there's a difference. I'm just going to toggle back here. Look back to 2005. The nation sort of hit this peak for residential building permits, fell during the housing crisis, and has been rebounding nicely. For Colorado, we fell during the housing crisis, and we more than rebounded. We actually hit a new peak in 2021, and we're seeing it come back down. So our housing recovery here was actually greater than it was when benchmarking to the country. But now what we're seeing is a slowdown in construction that is greater than what we're seeing nationally. So 6% growth in single family year to date, but a 41% decline in multifamily permits. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but this is just showing you what that same growth in permits looks like by metro area across the state. And the Denver Boulder metro areas represent about 83% or so of the slowdown in building permit activity, and it's really concentrated in the Denver MSA because Boulder is down about 5% year to date. But when we look at when we scan across Colorado, Denver is down, Boulder is down just a bit year to date. Fort Collins is down, Greeley is down, Pueblo is down, Grand Junction is, and so this is just illustrating that this is widespread across Colorado that we're seeing a slowdown in building permits. It's not just a Denver phenomenon. When we take a look at the value of construction, so this is now broader than just residential. We can take a look at commercial construction, the non-residential piece that's above ground development. We can take a look at infrastructure development. And similar to residential building permits, we saw slower growth in 2023, slower growth yet again in 2024. But when we did our forecast back in December, we're projecting growth in residential values in 2025. We're projecting growth in infrastructure development in 2025. But this non-residential piece, we think, will continue to stay down for the year. And we can take a look at this by metro area as well. So again, showing that the Denver MSA is down 23% in 2024 for value of construction. Boulder is down 5%. Fort Collins is down 9%. So there's a general tendency across these metro areas for less construction overall in 2024, except for Grand Junction and the rural parts of Colorado where we saw a little bit of growth. So relating to sort of the entrepreneurship and startup culture in Colorado, we track new entity filings with the Secretary of State's office. And we also look at new starts coming from census data. And we saw Colorado peak about a year and a half ago or so. We're seeing less startup activity in general when we take a look at new entity filings, but a lot of this has to do with a fee reduction that the Secretary of State's office imposed a couple of years ago. So it really caused a surge in new activity, and now we're seeing that sort of tail off a little bit in 2024. When we ask our business leaders about how they're feeling about the state economy versus the national economy, we've actually seen a little bit of a change in sentiment where for the last 20 years or so, there is much more optimism from Colorado business leaders about the state's economy than the national economy. And this flipped for the first time in that 20-year period last quarter. So um, I think the silver lining there is that there's more optimism about the national economy than there has been. But there's something that's driving down expectations by Colorado's business leaders locally. So in closing, what's sort of the prospect for Colorado's economic growth? Think of like GDP growth, for instance. When I demonstrated the slow net migration that we're going through right now, talked about peak retirements in Colorado, 40,000 a year, leaving the labor force and retiring. Talking about modest employment growth, thinking about, $70,000 on average per job in Colorado. That's the average wage per job. So if we have 50,000 in new job growth, multiply that out, that's about 3.5 billion in new consumption just from employment growth. So if we have modest employment growth, what does that mean for consumption? And that's one reason why we're expecting this slower consumption. So put all of that together, and you might ask, how can we sustain economic growth in Colorado? And I think the optimism there is, as we take a look at historical data across the country, there are many states that have an aging population and that have had an older population for many years. Think of states like Florida that attract a lot of retirees. And there's even states that have had not only slow net migration, but even negative population growth, where they have a decreasing population. And more than 90% of the time, those states have continued to grow their economy and grow GDP. And I think that speaks a lot to productivity. And Colorado is a state that tends to also outcompete when it comes to labor productivity. And I think this is one of those things that will continue to make Colorado resilient as we look ahead, not only through 2025, but into the future. And that was an awful lot in an awful short of time. But I'll turn it back to you, John Michael, and see if you want to facilitate a few questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. That was fantastic. We do have a couple questions already in the chat. Why are home mortgage rates continuing to increase given all of the other positive metrics?
Yeah, so I'm speculating a little bit, but I think there's a couple reasons for it. I think one of the main reasons, when we think about the yield curve in general, you should see short-term interest rates lower than long-term interest rates, and that was inverted for a while. And so that inverted yield curve was a worry. But so I think it's good that we're seeing that normalize, where we are seeing now short-term rates lower than longer-term rates. So that piece of it is good. I think why we could be seeing a rise in mortgage rates right now is inflation expectations, right? So as you go out into the future, if your expectations are that we're going to see an era of higher inflation into the future, you should see that priced into interest rates. And so I think that could be one of the reasons. It's not just mortgage rates, it's the 10-year treasury and so on, where we're seeing some upward pressure in those longer term rates.
The next question is, what is driving the non-farm employment growth average down?
So I think it's generally a worker supply issue. So we do have we're at the record levels of labor force nationally and in Colorado. We still see job openings rise. So we get the national data a little bit before we get the state level data. So we're looking at November job openings for the states. We're looking at December for the nation. And December actually increased rather than decreased nationally. So I think it shows that there's still demand for workers nationally. I think that's a signal of a healthy employment market nationally. But but we're we're increasing the labor force at a much slower rate. In Colorado, I think it was like 0.3% year over year. So we're not adding workers to the labor force sort of fast enough to keep up with the demand for workers. So I think naturally we're just seeing that slower growth.
Awesome. Next question is sales tax revenue. Is sales tax revenue shown as being inflation adjusted?
No. So that's a great question. So when we take a look at national retail sales even, and I think they were up 4% or so year over year, 3% so year over year. Um, those are not inflation adjusted. But if we do the simple math there where we subtract off the 2.9% inflation, then we're nationally we're seeing flat to slightly positive real growth in retail sales. In Colorado, though, if you did the same exercise, even though we have a much slower inflation rate in Colorado, when we take a look at the actual sales tax collections from the state, the first retail slide, there we're seeing real growth. Um, but that includes both retail sales and the sales vendor fee. When we take a look at that second slide that I showed, where 0.8% growth year to date through October for the state, that would be negative real growth. So adjusting for inflation, it would actually be a little bit negative. And a lot of our metro areas are sort of in that flat range before you subtract out inflation. But
Okay.
that's a good question. Yeah.
Next question is what is driving a declining construction for areas such as Boulder and Denver when there's not enough housing?
Yeah. I think that one is hard. When we take a look at the value of construction, um, it's broader, right? So it's residential, it's non-residential, and it's infrastructure. And I think the slowdown in non-residential activity makes a lot of sense. We have high vacancy rates in our office real estate. Retail is actually doing okay, but we're not seeing a lot of new commercial space come online like we did, a few years ago. So the non-residential piece makes sense. The residential piece, I think is a little bit more of a head scratcher because we've demonstrated that there's demand for housing here. We've had the high home price appreciation, but we're just not building enough. And I think that sort of begs a question um, of zoning or permitting or some regulation on new housing development. Is it the price point where we're not able to build housing for some at the price point that some cohorts desperately need housing? Because of some of these things, land costs and so on. So I don't have a clear answer for why we've seen a slowdown in residential permitting, except on the multifamily side. What we did see on the multifamily side is there is such a surge of multifamily construction over the last few years, and now it's pausing, like it is for the nation, but it's pausing even more in Colorado. And I think that illustrates just a huge wave of product that's going to be hitting the market. It's already hitting the market, but more is coming online. And and so there's a little bit less demand for that in places like, downtown Denver than what we have seen over the last several years. So it's sort of taking a breath a little bit when it comes to multifamily.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to let Matt ask his question directly. He has a great question for you, Brian.
Okay.
You didn't want to ask him if he was a betting man, John Michael?
I'll let you do that.
All right. My question is, Brian, thank you for all of that, by the way. But I think we're all wondering what's the number one takeaway that you'd have second stage company founders pay attention to? Should we be expanding and pouring money into growth right? Should we be holding fast to our cash reserves and getting ready to batten down the hatches? We're hearing this wave coming in 2030, 2035, something like that, about some Great Depression. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because honestly, we're right at that inflection points, and all those graphs could change if we think that wave is coming.
Yeah, I'm generally optimistic. I think that to overuse the word resiliency, I think that we do have a lot of resiliency, and generally, as an American culture, we have a way of working through problems. So I wouldn't necessarily stop investing or change investing in 2025 based on some sort of worry that might linger out there for 2030 or 2035. And I'll tell you a short anecdote there. I've got a good friend who, lived through the housing crisis, and then that home price appreciation that we had in Colorado that really took off. And I remember it was probably 2013 or 2014 or so. And he's like, "Oh gosh, Brian, I'm not going to buy a house right now. I'm going to wait for the next housing crisis to happen." And he missed out on so much growth and appreciation because he was waiting for the next shoe to drop. And so that, Matt, that's sort of how I think about your question is you can worry about something that's lingering out there in the future if it's some sort of next Great Depression, but what do you miss out on in the short run as you're worrying about that? There are risks out there. I mean, I touched on this for a moment. When we think about uh, tariffs, for instance, and what that could mean, that can be disruptive to supply chains, and that can cause inflation. And if that happens, what does that mean for Fed policy? Fed policy isn't really designed to help tamp down supply side inflation. It's more demand side, consumer inflation. Um, but perhaps you see a rise in interest rates again. And if you see a rise in interest rates, does that mean slower economic growth? I'm not saying recession or negative growth, but what are sort of some of the repercussions of some of that? And so I think that's why there's been so many policy items talked about with sort of few details. So it's hard to analyze them a little bit right now. But that's what I think we need to be paying attention to in the short run is as new policies are sort of suggested and imposed, thinking about how that ends up trickling down to all of your businesses and how do you mitigate some of those risks. So I've got a friend who works in outdoor apparel manufacturing and sales. And so goods are coming in from overseas. And is there some inventory that you can pull forward in anticipation of something like tariffs? Or can you move your manufacturing around the world to mitigate some of those risks? Can you bring manufacturing back home to mitigate some of those risks? And so I think that's the huge opportunity for all of you is to acknowledge and understand what the risks are and then find strategies to mitigate some of those.
That's a great answer, Brian. I can validate that some of the companies that we're consulting in my personal business, we actually have sent some people to other parts of Asia to diversify away from the China supply, just in case that risk of tariffs and so on becomes a reality. So, yeah, we're looking at a lot of that. But thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. So, what I hear you say is grow, baby, grow.
Yeah. We need all of you to do that for the future of Colorado's economy, for sure.
That's right. Well, thank you, Brian. I want to be respectful of your time this morning, and thank you again for giving us a wonderful presentation and insight for the future of our economy. And um, thank you again, and we'll let you continue on with your day, and we'll move on to our CCTW town hall.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
All right. So we're going to move on to our second part of this morning's session and do our Colorado Companies to Watch Town Hall. And to kick it off, our enthusiastic board chair, Matt Frary, is going to give a quick overview of Colorado companies to watch for 2025.
Thanks, John Michael. Good morning, everybody. First, big virtual round of applause for Brian Lewandowski from the Lead School of Business. Like, click your icons, clap your hands, ring your bells. That was awesome. His economic forecast was optimistic enough that I'm half expecting Colorado's state flower to change to a dollar sign. So, raise of hands, how many of you were benchmarking yourselves as Brian was talking? I know I was. I think on the chart about startups, I may or may not have contributed to half of those applications myself. Um, True story. As an alumni of CU Lead School of Business, I couldn't be prouder. Brian brings a lot to our community, but it's also a reminder that CU is about more than just Coach Prime. And if, don't get me wrong, Coach Prime's dope, but hyping up CU so much. But CU is one of the most difficult business schools to get into now. If you have a high school senior like I do, I have a junior turning into a senior. It's actually super difficult now to get into college because that business school has become so good. So I liken it to we're like Colorado companies to watch is kind of like the Coach Prime for second stage companies. We bring the energy, we spotlight the MVPs, we make sure the world knows just how innovative and game changing those companies are for our state. So if CU's got the hype on the field, we've got the hype in the boardrooms and the factories and the co-working spaces, and we drive Colorado's forward. So Brian's presentation reminds us that optimism isn't just about survival, it's about growth and opportunity. And at Colorado Companies to Watch, we see optimism every day in the incredible businesses that we celebrate. These companies don't just adapt, they innovate, they create jobs, they build the kind of future that we all want to be a part of. And CCTW exists to elevate those second stage companies, giving them the community, the tools, the resources, and the connections that they need to drive in an ever-changing economy. So my personal journey with CCTW is a testament to the power of this organization. If I could just take a second, I was a six-time finalist. Yes, a six-time finalist. Erin smiles every time. She probably was there just knocking my application down just for fun. Finally, I was honored as a winner in 2020 with my company, Smarter Chaos. That recognition was transformational. It led to connections that helped my company achieve a successful exit and ultimately to go public on the New York Stock Exchange. So CCTW isn't just about awards, it's about impact. It's about connecting businesses with people, resources, and ideas they need to thrive. And it's why I'm so passionate about giving back. So Colorado Companies to Watch is community. So for our vision in 2025, we have a prosperity mindset. We look to the future, and I've challenged our team to reimagine Colorado Companies to Watch with a prosperity mindset. So we're not here just to sustain, we're here to grow, to innovate, and to lead. Sustain's the old us, grow is the new us, and we're going to focus on building stronger communities, connecting businesses and leaders across every corner of Colorado. We're empowering winners and alumni. We're offering long-term support and opportunities for growth. We're strengthening Colorado Companies to Watch as an organization. We've been busy ensuring that we continue to be the go-to resource for second stage companies in Colorado. At the heart of Colorado Companies to Watch is our commitment to give first philosophy. It's not about what we can get, but what we can give. And in that spirit, we'd be remiss not to acknowledge the challenges faced by our neighbors in California, where many have lost their homes and tragically even their lives due to devastating fires. And we're already working on a plan to offer the support, and we welcome your ideas as a community on how we can help. So when we show up for others, especially in times of need, we create the kind of community that truly defines Colorado. So the power of showing up is super important to me. Speaking of showing up, one thing that we've learned at Colorado Companies to Watch is that great things happen when we show up. Showing up creates opportunities for collaboration, for innovation, for connection. Just showing up today, we thank you for that. Whether it's attending events, supporting each other's businesses, or simply being present in your community. Showing up is a powerful way to make an impact. None of this would be possible without the incredible dedication of our team at Colorado Koch. Leading the effort is our inspiring executive director, Kristen Westberg, who exemplifies the give first philosophy. She showed up in such a huge way and is driving our vision for a prosperous 2025. So please join me in welcoming Kristen to share her insights and the plans for the year ahead.
Matt, you forgot one thing. Ski day.
What's that?
Ski day.
All right. Well, my closing remarks will be about joining us. Thank you for the picture. That's amazing. For the Colorado companies to watch ski day, guys. So strap on your skis. What better way? I just a little side note. I sold my company. This is a true story by using the chairlift as a boardroom. I actually negotiated the sale of Smarter Chaos in 2020 while on a ski slope at Breckenridge. And most recently, I just gained a new client while at a lodge in Breckenridge, just randomly meeting someone. So anyway, come ski with us. It's going to be Thursday, February 20th. Starts at 9:30 a.m., but some of us will be there earlier because if you're a true skier or snowboarder, then you know that you want to get there when the lifts first open. So anyway, register and come join us, and we'll see you soon.
And Jennifer just dropped the link to register in the chat.
Show up.
That's right.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thanks for kicking us off, Matt, and for the warm intro. I appreciate it. I was asked to first talk about, my history and background with Colorado Companies to Watch. And so I had the privilege of leading a company called House of Revenue, who won Colorado Companies to Watch in 2021. And we went on to become a partner. And that really gave me a wonderful introduction to Colorado Companies to Watch. I remember the first event I attended and how welcome and included I felt already. And it really pulled me in, and I started showing up, as Matt said, and attending events and participating in committee meetings, and ultimately had the opportunity to join the board in 2023. I went on to become the vice chair of the alumni committee with John Michael serving as chair. We've been a dynamic duo. Really, he's spearheaded the regional chapters, which he'll talk a little bit more about. And I had the privilege of really launching the Denver alumni chapter last year, and was able to pull together our Denver Metro alumni and some of our kind of outer regional alumni together for different events across last year. And we have one coming up that I'll speak about in a little bit. But I did have the opportunity to become the executive director about 6 months ago, and it has been incredibly rewarding. We have such a committed board that is really invested and commits so much of their time to help this organization grow. And I will say that for me personally, all of my involvement with Colorado Companies to Watch, it has been the most rewarding of my career of any professional organization or network that I've participated in. I have built unbelievable customer, partner, and peer relationships and very meaningful friendships along the way too. I love this community. I think we're, as I said, a very inclusive community of very humble business leaders. I love the vulnerability that we show up with at our events and how we share and help each other learn from our personal experiences. Our past winners are just an unbelievable collection of Colorado companies across the state, across all industries. They're doing groundbreaking work that really blows my mind. And, beyond shaping the future of Colorado economically, they are also giving back socially, environmentally. And we had an incredible event in November, our social impact workshop. And prior to that event, I had the opportunity to read the community impact stories that our 2024 winners shared in their applications. And it was such an inspiring read. It made me even more proud to be part of this organization and do my part to help support the growth of these companies. Our partners add unbelievable value. They share their expertise so graciously at our events. with our resources. They fund our programming and provide unbelievable direction on how we can continue to improve that and better serve our vast community. And so I'm incredibly grateful to them. As I mentioned, our board directors, they really, many have committed years to this organization and really care about its future. We all tap into our personal networks, our company resources, and volunteer time to serve this community. And it's just incredibly inspiring to see how gracious everyone on our board is. And, of course, I have to mention our programming. We have the most fun events. They're educational, and it's just, the people who show up are just there to learn, to build relationships, and to have fun. And it's just an incredible way to make that time to really think about your business, about the opportunities, about, even today showing up and trying to understand what the economy is shaping up for the year and beyond for our companies and for our state. So it's just incredible to, swap stories and share laughs at all of our events. The executive director role was something we created. And I believe it's because we're all here invested in the future of Colorado companies to watch. We've been around for 16 years, so we're a long-standing organization. Obviously, COVID, we're still rebuilding. It sort of changed the landscape of in-person gatherings and events, but we're really cementing our place in the Colorado business landscape. Our vision is to be the Colorado network for second stage companies, offering recognition, education, and then partner peer customer relationship development with the best network, the best professional network, and can't miss events. This year, we are growing our benefits and improving our programming so that all of our stakeholders, our winners, our alumni, our partners, our economic developers, board directors, so everyone can receive more value from their engagement with our organization. We know everyone is so busy, and we want the time you invest in Colorado companies to watch to deliver significant ROI, however you measure that for you personally or for your business. We're doing some incredible things. We're expanding our media relationships. We've broadened that so far in terms of publications, in terms of reach across the state, with the ultimate design to get more exposure for all of our stakeholders and for the organization. We're adding new programs this year. We're going to be rolling out programs like peer groups and workshops and many more to continue to provide opportunities to foster connection and learn and grow with each other. We're intending to develop and deepen our community and our connectivity through programs like an ambassador program and enhancing our online resources and connections there. So John Michael is going to speak a little bit more about some of that through LinkedIn. And ultimately, one of the biggest changes we're making this year is we've expanded the criteria for winners, reaching all the way up to companies that are generating 100 million in revenue and have up to 150 employees. So that's a really exciting shift for us to be more expansive in our definition of second stage companies and serve larger companies than we've been able to in the past. And then to touch upon our upcoming events, Matt mentioned our ski day, which is going to be incredibly fun. Great excuse to get out of the office and enjoy a day on the slopes. We are including skiers of all levels, and obviously the non-skiers are welcome to join in our happy hour. We're currently in talks with one of our alumni, Shinesty, to do some cool giveaways for participants. So keep your eyes out for that. We're excited to kind of add a little bit of additional love for that event. And then we have an unbelievable roster of regional chapter events coming up in February and March. So starting with our Denver Metro chapter, I know John Michael is going to tell you Pikes Peak is the best chapter, and we'll let him do that. But on February 5th, one of our alumni, Garlic Media, is going to be hosting an event all around driving growth in today's market. So we're going to be kind of attacking growth from all angles, from marketing and sales and even strategic growth. So that one's going to be an unbelievable event to attend if you're focused on growth for your company this year, which hopefully all of us are, given what we just learned and being in a second stage company environment. And then our Pikes Peak chapter will be right on the heels of that on February 13th, hosted at Exponential Impact. And that one is going to be about raising capital in the current economy. So great conversation to have following today's presentation. Then a few other dates to save. Our Boulder chapter event will be on February 27th. Our South Denver event will be on March 6th, and then our Northern Colorado chapter event on March 13th. So more details to follow on all of those events, but please save the date. We'd love to see you there. And then I know John Michael is going to talk a little bit more about nominations. We are intending to continue nominations through January 31st, and then applications will run throughout the month of February and into early March. But please, please, please stop and think about companies that you know, either clients, partners, prospects, friends. We want this community gets stronger and stronger the higher quality and better companies that we bring in as winners and then alumni and hopefully partners. And so we just really want to encourage everyone to take a moment to nominate companies that you believe are worthy of this award and who would be an incredible addition to our community. So, John Michael, are you up next?
I am. Thank you,
Okay,
Chris.
let me give as warm of a intro as Matt did. I mean, I think everyone here knows John Michael. He has been such an asset to Colorado companies to watch long before he stepped into the program manager role. We were so fortunate to have him step into that role. He has just demonstrated so much passion and so much commitment and has given so much to all of us, to our board, to our alumni, to our partners. And we couldn't do it without him. And I'm just really lucky that he is my dynamic duo half. And so I'll let him kick off his section, but we're just really lucky to have him and me especially.
Thank you, Kristen. Jennifer did drop links in to the chat for the events page. So if you want to register for any of these events that are coming up, go to our events page. We're still waiting on some details for Boulder, South Denver, and North Colorado, but we should have those finalized soon and live on the website. And then the nomination link is also in the chat. Just to follow up on Kristen's comment, please, if you know any second stage companies, especially in the Pikes Peak region, please nominate them. We'd love to have a large pool of nominees across the state of Colorado this year to pick winners from for this year's class of 2025. So yes, my name is John Michael Horst. I am the program manager for Colorado Companies to Watch and a board director, and Kristen and I lead the alumni committee. So I just want to give a quick kind of like my why for Colorado Companies to Watch. Why am I involved? And my why is community and relationships. I've been involved in Colorado Companies to Watch for uh, two to 3 years, and it has changed my life. I have met so many wonderful people. I have learned about so many amazing companies across the state. And as Kristen said, I have a huge passion for this organization because I'm a native of Colorado. I love to see our state thrive. I love to see all types of companies be successful in this state, from roofing companies to plumbing companies to defense contractors to high tech companies. It's wonderful to see businesses thrive in our state, to add jobs, to grow operations, and to just, make our state a wonderful place to live and work and exist. And I want to give some special thanks today. Um, a special thanks to Matt, Kristen, and Aaron for their leadership and their vision for Colorado Companies to Watch, and for helping me and assisting me and providing reaching our goals, meeting our vision, growing this community. You'll hear, I'm going to say community a lot, growing this wonderful community and showing up, as Matt would say. We're showing up and we're giving back. I also want to thank our wonderful board of directors and our legacy board, including Lisa, who leads our partnership committee, Emily, who leads our economic development committee, um, everyone on the board. Jillian has been a wonderful asset for us in helping lead our alumni committee before I took over, and she's still heavily involved in helping getting our South Denver chapter going. And then I also want to thank the team at Crazy Good Marketing. Melody, Jennifer, and Veronica, we would not be able to do what we do to make this program run if it wasn't for all the hard work and passion for the program. So thank you to the Crazy Good Marketing team. And then before I go into chapters, speaking of the Pikes Peak chapter, I want to thank everyone in the Pikes Peak region for helping me grow our first chapter for Colorado Companies to Watch. Sherry Hoffman at the Colorado Springs Chamber has been a huge supporter of our chapter. So thank you, Sherry. And Blake and Janelle at Colorado Computer Support have been a fantastic partner for the Pikes Peak chapter. So thank you for all of your support in growing our chapter. So about 2 years ago, we started the Pikes Peak chapter to kind of get a community growing in Colorado Springs because it is difficult for us down in Colorado Springs to make the drive to Denver for events. You're looking at a 1 to 2 hour drive time there, 2 hours for the event, 2 hours back. That's a huge commitment. So we decided to start doing our own events in the Pikes Peak region because we wanted to build a community. And it became so successful, we started doing it across the state. Grand Junction has started their chapter and it's been a huge success. Kristen started the Denver Metro chapter last April, and that has been a huge success. And it's building a community in the downtown Denver metro area. We started the Boulder and the South Denver chapters in October during National Manufacturing Month, and both events were very successful, well attended, lots of positive feedback that they loved how we're doing these regional events. Even in Boulder, South Denver, people love just being able to jump in the car and drive 5 minutes to an event. Um, so it's growing. We're doing these regional chapters to each region's different in a business sense. Each region has their own business needs, their own business challenges. So it's great to build these communities in different parts of the state while still staying connected to the overall Colorado Companies to Watch organization. It has been a fantastic journey and we're excited about it. And the Northern Colorado chapter started their first event in December, and we're excited to see where that chapter goes this year. Um, and then what we're kind of expanding to the digital space. We've started LinkedIn private groups for each chapter. And so not, rather than just building that community in person, you can go online to these private groups and interact with those in the community in your chapter to ask for help or offer assistance or just share expertise within your community, within the chapter. So we've started those private LinkedIn groups. If you'd like to join, well, first of all, if you'd like to join the alumni committee and help us grow these chapters, please let me know. I'll drop my email in the chat shortly. And then if you haven't joined one of our private LinkedIn groups for one of our regional chapters, I will also you can also email me and I will send you the link to the appropriate chapter that you should join. So again, that's kind of the update on the chapters. We're going to do chapter events throughout the year. So February, March, May, August, and then the December holiday parties. So lots of exciting stuff going on this year. Going back to what Matt said and what Kristen has said, please show up, give first. We're building a community. Running a company and being an entrepreneur is hard and it can be lonely, and it doesn't have to be. We're a community. We're here to support our community. Everyone's has their challenges. Everyone has their good and bad days. We're a community here to support you. I love this community, and I hope everyone feels the same way. So thank you again to everybody who participates. Thank you to our board, and thank you to everyone who supports us at Crazy Good Marketing. Up next is our wonderful partnership lead, Lisa, who's going to talk about how we're building this community with our partners who we could not do it without.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. What an incredible morning from getting the information that we received with respect to the economy in Colorado, which I know excites everybody on this call, as well as I hope everybody on the call can feel through the voices and the intonations of everybody who has spoken the renewed commitment and excitement level that we have for Colorado companies to watch. 2025, actually, we ended 2024 very strongly. I know we're looking to the forward. I know we're looking forward. But with the addition of Kristen as an executive director at the latter part of 2024, really elevated and took Colorado companies to watch to a whole new level. So thank you to the board for making the decision to put an executive director in place. But most importantly, thank you to Kristen for all of the hard work that she jumped on right away to move this companies to watch to the next level. As chair of the partner committee, we are out constantly looking for partners to help support our second stage companies. I am the managing director of Miner and Brown, and we joined Colorado Companies to Watch 2 years ago. And not long after, probably, after 9 months, I was elected to participate in the board and be a part of the exciting things we had going on at Colorado Companies to Watch. So by that personal experience, what I really want to do is encourage everyone on this call and anyone who attends any of our events, the importance of getting involved and the importance of giving back. We are one of the organizations that none of our nominees, none of our winners are asked to pay any money to receive these awards. These awards are earned by all of our winners on their own merits. And we don't ask for anything back from them. But as an organization, we do need to give back to our winners and to our future nominees and our future winners. And unfortunately, it can't be done without partnership and support from outside third parties. So I would make the plea to everyone on this call and everybody who knows some of our alumni and who knows people that are active in the business community and truly deeply care about second stage companies and their growth and development and their future success, to encourage them to consider becoming a partner of Colorado Companies to Watch. And this includes our alumni. I know our alumni are given access to all of the great programming that we provide for them. But having our alumni come in as partners for Colorado Companies to Watch will build just a little bit of extra connection with our other partners. Our partners as a group meet regularly on how we can give back as a partner group to our second stage companies. And those are important meetings and important information and sharing of thoughts and ideas comes out of that. So I would encourage all of our alumni. I would encourage everybody on this call to think about your Rolodex and think about the people who can greatly benefit from being a part of Colorado Companies to Watch, both as a nominee, which we're in the middle of our nomination session, so I don't want to downplay that one. So don't forget to nominate those second stage companies, but also don't forget to talk to your friends, your colleagues, your business partners that you work with on a regular basis about Colorado Companies to Watch and becoming a partner in Colorado Companies to Watch so that we can continue the great missions and programming and everything that we're striving to give back to our business communities. You can reach out either to me directly, to Kristen, to any of our board members, to Alex Wardlaw, who is my co-chair on the partner committee. We are all available, and we'd love to sit down and meet with anybody one-on-one about the vision of Colorado Companies to Watch and how you can help be a part of this incredible growing community. Thanks, John Michael.
You're on
John
mute,
Michael,
buddy.
you're mute.
It was going so well,
I know,
and
right? We had to have one issue come up. Thank you, Lisa. Up next is Emily Fay with our Economic Development Committee to give us an update on what they're working on.
Good morning. And yeah, thank you everyone for being with us today. And I sort of echo Lisa's sentiment. I think every time we get to hear from Brian about the changing economic climate in the state and across the nation, I always learn a lot and really value that presentation at that time. My name is Emily Fay. I'm a business development manager with the City and County of Denver at Denver Economic Development and Opportunity. And I'm thrilled to be a part of Colorado Companies to Watch. We have quite a few alumni that have emerged as winners at Colorado Companies to Watch since its founding quite a few years ago. And I think for me, the value I get out of it is not only connecting to those alumni and see where they are in their growth trajectory now, but also helping identify who some of those growers and next big Denver companies will be in the future and making them aware of all the resources they have as they continue to grow and join this community. So it's been really wonderful for me to be involved and to get involvement from other economic developers. I know I saw a few on the call earlier today, and of course, Sherry, it's great to see you this morning as well. And just continue to involve our economic development community, whether that's at the local level, at the chamber, at the county. We also have extremely strong regional and state partners that are working with these second stage companies all the time and have resources at their disposal to connect with. So I'll sort of leave it at that. And if there's any questions I can answer, or if you would like to be connected to your local economic developer, please reach out to me and I'm happy to make that connection for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. Any questions for our town hall? Any questions about Colorado Companies to Watch, nomination process?
ski day. Anybody have questions about coming to the ski day? By the way, John Michael named it the Matt Frary Day, which is tongue in cheek because he turned it over to me and it's my responsibility to recruit. So whatever I have to do to get you out to the ski day, like I can't even believe I have to bribe people to come ski in Powder. So I'm just going to fill the time here with imagining that you all are showing up to my ski day.
That's right. Thank you, Matt. Before we close today, just wanted to again remind everyone nominations are closing next Friday, January 31st. This is a great opportunity to recognize those second stage companies in Colorado that are really driving the economic development of the state and to celebrate their success and their growth. Just to briefly remind everyone of the criteria. To qualify, you have to be a commercial business headquartered in Colorado that is privately held. You have to have surpassed the startup phase and are now in high growth mode. You have to have 6 to 150 full-time employees, and your annual revenue as of last year has to be between $750,000 to $100 million. So please submit your nomination at on our website. If you go to our website, you can't miss it. It's our hero image. Just click on it. Takes you to the nomination page. And then starting in February, we'll be promoting applications. So companies who are not nominated could still apply to be a Colorado company to watch. So please make sure you get your nominations in by next Friday. And with that, again, we just want to thank our partners. We could not be doing what we're doing to grow this community and support our second stage companies without them. So thank you again to all of our partners for not only sponsoring Colorado Companies to Watch, but for continuously showing up to our events and supporting us in so many other ways. Thank you all. And I hope you have a great day. That concludes our session, and wish you all a great Thursday and a fantastic weekend.